Begin kneeling, sitting on your heels. Interlace your hands and place your hands behind your head with your elbows wide. Inhale to lift tall through the spine and exhale to side bend, bringing one elbow towards your hip. Move through center and then find the opposite side bend. Continue to alternate from side to side about 6 to 8 times. Then, return to center. Keeping your hands behind your head, begin to perform an arch through the spine. Let the back of your head press into your hands as your ribs move forward and your elbows open wide. With an exhale, close the elbows, tuck your chin to your chest, and round through the spine. Inhale to open into your arch, and exhale to close, rounding the spine 3 to 4 times. Then, find neutral. Flip your palms to the ceiling and extend through the arms. Squeeze the shoulders up by your ears with an inhale, and exhale, release the shoulders down. Inhale to create tension, squeezing the shoulders up, and exhale, release, dropping them down. Repeat 3 to 4 times. Then keep the shoulders down away from your ears. Release the grip of the hands and circle the wrists as you lower your hands down by your hips. Interlace your hands behind you, and with your palms together, straighten your elbows and draw your knuckles towards the floor. Tuck your chin to your chest and place the top of your head on the floor directly in front of your knees. Begin to lift your hips, shifting the weight over your head. Reach your knuckles to the ceiling or even overhead behind you. Hold here for 3 to 5 breaths, continuing to open up the fronts of the shoulders. Then, reverse the direction, sitting on your heels and releasing the hands. Shift your hips to one side and extend one leg out to your side. The opposite foot touches the inner thigh. Bring one hand to your inner thigh and the opposite arm up by your ear. Create a side bend, reaching up and over and reaching for your toes. Try to keep the shoulders stacked as you look up to the ceiling. Hold for a breath or two, and then return to neutral. Then repeat on the opposite side. Create a side bend, reaching up and over and reaching for your toes. Try to keep the shoulders stacked as you look up to the ceiling. Hold for a breath or two. And then return to neutral. Plant the hands behind you and extend the legs out in front of you. Begin to circle through the ankles as you bend and extend through the arms. Allow the body to ripple as the ankles rotate. Circle the ankles 3 times in one direction and then 3 times in the opposite direction, allowing the chest to sink and arch accordingly. Then, bend the elbows and roll yourself down until you're laying flat on your back. Bring your hands down by your hips and bend your knees to a tabletop position. With the knees bent at 90 degrees, engage your abdominals. Lower one knee, tapping the toe on the floor, and then bring it back to center. Repeat on the opposite side. Continue to alternate these toe taps 6 to 8 times. Extend both legs up to the ceiling at 90 degrees. Begin to flex through the feet. Then bend the knees to your chest, keeping the soles of the feet to the ceiling. Extend through both legs, stretching through the backs of the legs, and then point through the feet. Continue this sequence. Bend, extend, point, and flex 4 to 6 times. Be sure to keep the legs hip-width distance apart. Keeping one leg up to the ceiling, bend the opposite knee and plant the foot flat on the floor. Interlace your hands around the extended leg. Pull the leg close for a hamstring stretch, and then begin to flex and point through the ankle. Flex and point 6 to 8 times. And then release the stretch and switch your legs. Extend the opposite leg to the ceiling and plant the other foot flat on the floor. Interlace your hands around the extended leg. Pull the leg close for a hamstring stretch, and then begin to flex and point through the ankle. Flex and point 6 to 8 times. And then release the stretch. Bend your knees to your chest, hugging on to the backs of your hamstrings, and curl your chin towards your chest. Start to rock and roll up and down the spine, keeping your belly button engaged, and then cross your ankles, shift up and over onto your hands and knees. Spread your fingers, stack your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees. Maintain a neutral spine by engaging your abdominal. Then, tuck your toes underneath you and lift your knees so that you hover 2 to 3 inches above the floor. Maintaining a neutral spine, start to create a rocking motion forward and back, shifting your shoulders over your wrists and back. Continue this rocking for 4 to 6 breaths, and then lower the knees. Point the toes and then sink your belly into an arch. Look up with your head and eyes and open across the front of the chest. Begin to rhythmically pump your ribs to the floor, increasing the back bend at your ribs. Continue this rib pumping for 6 to 8 repetitions. And then sit your hips back onto your heels for a child's pose. Hold here for a breath or 2, and then slide yourself forward onto your belly. Come onto your forearms and find your Sphinx pose. Make sure your shoulder, elbows, and wrists are all in one straight line, with your forearms parallel to one another. Press into your forearms and lengthen the space between your ear and shoulders. Then, begin to perform head circles. Bring your ear to your shoulder, your chin to your chest, and continue to circle all the way around. Circle 3 times in one direction and 3 times in the other direction. Then, lower yourself down onto your belly and bring your forehead to your hands. Bend one knee to 90 degrees and flex the foot. Engage your glutes and pulse your heel straight up to the ceiling and then lower with control. Continue to lift and lower the thigh off the ground 6 times. Then, point the toes and reach your arm back, pulling the heel toward your hips for a quad stretch. Perhaps you can even lift the knee off of the floor, increasing the stretch at the front of the hip. Hold for 2 to 3 breaths and then release. Repeat on the other side. Bend one knee to 90 degrees and flex the foot. Engage your glutes and pulse your heel straight up to the ceiling and then lower with control. Continue to lift and lower the thigh off the ground 6 times. Then, point the toes and reach your arm back, pulling the heel toward your hips for a quad stretch. Perhaps you can even lift the knee off of the floor, increasing the stretch at the front of the hip. Hold for 2 to 3 breaths and then release. Bend both knees with your toes to the ceiling and then allow the legs to swish from side to side like windshield wipers. Allow the hips to lift off of the floor as the legs move from side to side. Alternate sides 6 to 8 times and then extend the legs back long along the floor. Keeping your forehead on your hands and your elbows wide, engage your back and lift your upper body. Lower with control. Continue these upper back lifts 6 to 8 times. Place your hands by your shoulders and extend your arms, lifting your body up into a cobra pose. Open across the front of the chest and let your head release back. Hold here for 3 to 5 breaths. Then, with your exhale, lower down to the floor. Push yourself up and back into a child's pose. Hold here for a few breaths. Then, roll up to sit on your heels. Grab your strap and hold it taut between your hands. You may have to have them wider than your shoulders and allow them to slide apart as necessary. Beginning with your arms parallel to the floor, sweep your arms up to the ceiling and all the way back behind you until your arms reach your hips. Reverse the direction, lengthening out and overhead until they reach your starting position. Repeat this flossing forward and back 6 to 8 times. Try to keep your ribs knitted together and move smoothly through your range of motion. Again, to intensify, walk your hands closer together, and to make it a little bit easier, separate your hands further apart. Release the strap and come to stand on your knees. Bring the heels of your hands onto your sacrum, or the bony plate at the base of your spine. Begin to push your hips forward over your knees, taking tiny pulses forward. Keep your belly engaged and focus the action in the hips. Repeat this action 6 to 8 times, and then stack your shoulders over your hips. With the heels of your hands on your sacrum, begin to press your hips forward and roll your spine into a back bend. This is your camel pose. Allow your head to release back and hold for 2 to 3 full breaths. Then, restack your spine and sit on your heels. Extend your arms out to a T with your palms up. Then, flex your wrists, pulling your fingertips back towards your forearms. Starting with the fingertips, curl into a fist. Curl your fist in and bend your elbows, bringing your knuckles towards your shoulders. Keeping the wrists folded inward, extend through the arms, and then extend through the hands. Repeat this action 3 to 4 times, and then release the hands. With your arms hanging comfortably by your sides, squeeze your shoulders up by your ears with an inhale, and then exhale, release the shoulders down. Again, inhale, create tension by pulling the shoulders up, and exhale, release and drop them down. Repeat 3 times.